part 2 of the tutorial on the GUI components here. Alright, so we designed the GUI platform, and that was done in the last one, and we created instances in there. Yes. Now, we created and we declared and we initialized our various instances. We used here parameterized constructor. They are fully parameterized, and these are also fully parameterized. We displayed the ratings, and to display our what's the other thing, the actual games, if we only wanted to display the games, we would literally just change this from that to G1, G2, and then we can delete the rest of that. Okay, so literally, and then how we would get the method to work is we would right click events, action performed. If you double click on a button or an action element, it will automatically take you to that. But you've got to realize something. When you do this, and I go events, action performed, it's not as simple as that. And I want you to understand what is happening on the background. What you're actually doing, and I'll show you now, what you're actually doing is you're creating a action listener. So you'll see here, on my button 1, I didn't rename my buttons, I'm adding an action listener, which means there is an object in memory which is kind of listening for events that is happening on your keyboard or mouse. And this particular object on the screen will listen if there's an action that occurs on this. Now, there's different types of listeners. An action listener is for a click or an enter or a spacebar if you've tabbed to it and it's got focus. But you'll see that there's certain other type of listeners where you can listen for a mouse click specifically. And when you listen to a mouse click, you can actually determine whether it's a left click by using this parameter EVT action event. So this will then call the method that is referred to down here, and you'll see that there's a java.awt.event.action.event.evt. Now, I know it sounds complicated, but action event is a class. It is a class that contains, it's actually quite a far parent class, but yes, it's a class that can contain attributes of that actual event, so it can find out what that event is. So, for example, by analyzing that event, you can determine whether it was a click, whether it was a right click, whether it was a left click, whether it was an enter, whether it was this, that, next thing. You can technically do different things depending on the event that's happening there. You guys, all you need to do is just double click on it or right click event action perform. That's the purpose of a RAD environment, is it makes this kind of stuff easily. But I don't want you to not understand that there is actually an action event being placed onto that button that is listening for it, and an event will be invoked. When you guys code at your matric level, you might want to look at that event and do different actions if they right-clicked or left-clicked or middle-clicked or whatever. You might want to do different things. So I want you to be aware of that aspect. So when you run it, it will now, when I click on the buttons, it will display. I showed that in the last video, so I'm not going to show it now. What I do want to show is the alternative way of doing this. What if I wanted to add all games or all ratings down here, and when you click on it, it will show you the game details and the rating of that specific one. So you select it here, and then you go through. So it's a different way of displaying them. So the first thing we're wanting to do is we want to display all ratings. So I'm going to make another button, a third button, and we're going to rename this alternative method of viewing. Now, I'm going to, my grid layout is 2 rows by whatever, so I'm going to change it to 3. That's pretty ugly, but whatever.
Yes, all our grids.
Now, now from there, yeah, it looks better. Okay, now, what you can also do, just for interest's sake, you can make massive gaps. So, well, hello, not 500. 500 is bad. There, okay. So it's 50 too much. Okay, we go. Now, what we're going to do is, here we want to add to this list. The one thing you must always do is name the things that you need to refer to. So when I click on this, I want to display it alternatively. So let's go here and we'll go public void alternative display, brackets, close brackets. Now the first thing we want to do is we want to work with our list games, and you'll notice I used a Damn it.
So we haven't done that yet.
I used a AWT list, not a swing list, and the reason why a swing list is a little bit more complicated, but I just want to show you alternative methods. I'll get into more details later.
What's an AWT list? Well done.
It's just basically, remember I told you that the GUI components we use are classes that were made by different people. Now these here are different sets of GUI objects. Your swing GUI objects are newer. Like for example, you could technically work with, if you can import into your NetBeans a whole bunch of different GUI elements and classes and things into your project where you could work from that palette. So for example, I can add a calendar item to my palette. I can add different things to my palette. So AWT is a set of GUI components, and Swing is a set of GUI components. Swing is newer than AWT, but I'm using AWT because AWT is simpler to utilize for now. So I'm using that GUI element there, yes.
So Swing just means a setup.
Yes. Now, I'm in my AWT, I'm sitting here and I'm going to add the components to this section here. Now, what I don't like is my rating, I don't have a get a game for the rating. So, hey. Okay, so in my rating, I also just want to create my getter and setter for my title of game. So, of the game. Oh, what did I do? Getter and setter game. Okay. So, what if I wanted to just display a list of the game names that got rated, and then I want to display that specific rating details on the left when that's done? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say r1 dot get game dot get.
Fine.
Now you check, also only have cost. Damn it. Okay. I hate not having getters and setters and things, so you can't refer to it.
Let's make some more.
Yes, that's what I'm doing.
Brilliant idea.
Okay, to make life easier, I'm just going to display of the game. We're just going to list the games on the side, and then we're going to display the game details on the right, which is not major, but whatever. So g1.get .get title. List games.add g2.get title. Now, what you'll notice when I click this button now, if I've actually, I don't think I've coded this button yet, but if I click alternate method and I now run the alternate method,
Oh, okay. I think. Oh.
so it's now made a list on the left-hand side of the games that are in our database. In this case, or in our RAM. In this case, we only have 2 games, so it doesn't make much sense. But we would assume we'd have more. Now, the brilliant part about a list is that you can select one, right? So you can select an item on the list, and when you select that item, I would then want the details of that game to be displayed on the right-hand side. Obviously, our details at the moment is annoying. It's just the title and the price, but usually you'd have a lot more details than that, like a description, a screenshot, whatever. But in this case, in this silly example, we're just doing that. Now, what we're going to do is inside here, we're now going to get it. We're going to add another type of listener to our list. We're going to go events, item state changed or property changed. I always forget which one it is, but basically what we're doing is we're wanting to run a listener which will listen when the user selects a different component. Now, sometimes the easiest way to find out if you're using the correct listener, and I do need all of you to focus here because I am going to test you on this, is you just run a little system.out.println test, and then when you do run it, you'll notice that you go to the system.out.println dialog box, but if I go display alternate methods and I click on it, it should say test. So when I select the other one, and it should say test again. So I have used the correct action listener because it's listening to the word, listening to whenever I change a value, it's running their method. So I am in the correct location. I did use the correct action listener. I've tested it. It is the right one. I'm now going to go display selected. So now I want to display the selected game. So I'm going to go back to my code now. My coding area, public void display selected, I am then going to actually display the select item. So int pos is equal to lst games.get selected index semicolon site index, just so I can know where it's actually putting it out to, plus pos. And then what I can do is I can say if pos is equal to 0, txt display dot set text to be g1, else if pos is equal to 1.
Are we gonna be able to do this?
Yeah.
I'll explain in more details, just now give me a second.
I can't set up.
Why don't I do it?
Like, it's like a kid factory. It's like a, it's like if I charge, and that's like what you do.
Yeah. Okay, I can share it.
Alright guys, quiet. Now, what you'll notice is if I run this, now, you'll notice that if I go alternative method of displaying, and then I'll click on Mortal Kombat, it'll say Mortal Kombat is 200 Rand, Battlefield 600 Rand. So I can display the details from there. Now to go back over the code that we've done, is I went to my design. First of all, when I clicked this button, the event that I included was alternative display. All I did is I added the game 1 title and the game 2 title to the list. You've got to realize the next thing that I'm going to teach you after we do theory is arrays. Now, arrays, that's the whole of next week is theory.
Oh,
Now,
this is
arrays,
5 days of sitting in this theory for GUI.
now arrays, you just can loop through it and you can add as many as you want in the loop to this list. Does that make sense? Now, so that is the first step. The second thing I did is I added a listener to the actual list box to say if the item state changed, meaning what has been selected has been changed, if that has happened, occurred in this object, then run this. And I said, get the selected index, meaning the item, so it will return 0, 1, 2, 3, whatever the selected item that the user has selected on that list. Return that position. Now, when you get into more advanced GUI elements, like for example that list box that I was telling you in the swing components, you have something called select multiple, which means if you allow for the user to select multiple, you'll have to be able to handle if the fact that the user selected 5 of them. Or you can change properties which will only allow the user to select 1, blah, blah. That goes to GUI manipulation. This does not get examined, but it's important on your projects, and quite frankly, it's important if you actually want to design a program. So the first thing I do is I get the position that the user selected. I just printed it out because I wanted to test whether, I wasn't sure if it started at position 0. I was pretty sure it did, but I wasn't 100% sure. So I printed it out just in case it didn't work, if I could test it. But it did work, so it was no problem. And then I said if it is equal to 0, display game 1, which we know we added game 1 first. If it was position 2, which is sorry position 1, then display game 2. This again you would have to do through other ways if you were dealing with arrays, and we'll solve the array issue later. So for example, if we did this in the array, we could get selected item index, and then we could literally just say display that position in the array, if it was an array. But right now we just create different instances. Your guys' task now is literally to code. I'm going to post the memo prior to this. I'm hoping I have it prior to this. No, I've created prior to this. I'm going to post the memo prior to the actual GUI up on your guys' U drive. You are not to open it from the U drive. You are to copy and paste it to your T drive, and you are then going to do what I'm asking you here. Create the user interface like this, and I want to have a display all ratings, display all games. The next phase, I want you to also add a list box on the side, and I want you to select it and whatnot. I'll walk around and help you guys, but that is your task. Goodbye on the video. Goodbye.